On this episode of Locked On Angels, Logan O'Hoppe saves the weekend for the Halos with a walk-off on Sunday. The Angels do go 4-2 on this homestand. So when does all this learning actually turn into performing? Because we're watching them learn how to win. We'd love for them to do more 4-2 homestands and maybe 4-2 road trips. Let's talk all about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer with us. And whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels. We're talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday. On today's show, we're recapping the weekend. There were 2 losses in this one. We'll explain what happened. And then there was that big walk-off win that was also like what happened? And we'll get into all of that. But Mike, let's start with Friday's game. It was a 7-1 loss. It looked really good there for a while until it didn't, right?
Yeah, Angels were tied with the Astros for most of this game until the Astros really kind of blew the game open and scored 5 runs in the 7th inning because the bullpen just couldn't hold it down. So Griffin Canning was cruising in this game through 6 innings, but then he allowed back-to-back singles to some guy named Trey Cabbage. That sounds familiar, right? And then Jose Altuve in the 7th inning. So Wash comes in, he pulls Griffin Canning, brings in Hunter Strickland. And it was a good move on paper, John, because Hunter has not allowed an inherited runner to score this season, and he hadn't allowed an earned run in 10 consecutive outings. So This looked like a really good move, and Griffin Canning was getting tired, and so Wash came, brought in one of his better relievers, and Strickland walks Alex Bregman after home plate umpire Jonathan Parra missed what should have been strike 3.
Yeah,
that was a game changer in that inning, wasn't it?
It changed the whole projection of the inning, Mike, because the fact is it would have been a much different situation with Yordan Alvarez up to bat and 2 on rather than Yordan Alvarez up with the bases loaded.
Yeah.
And look, I said it after the show, or after the game, I should say. I wasn't mad at Hunter Strickland because I felt like, look, you can't help that situation. And then the whole thing went to crap because at the end of the day, like, you have this horrible situation with Yordan Alvarez up with the bases loaded versus 2 on, and you have the out, and it would have been 2 outs,
And they probably would have walked him. They probably would have intentionally walked Alvarez and then moved on, because that's what they did a lot this weekend, because the guy just is an angel killer. Yeah. And in that moment, you have an open base. It would have been probably the smartest thing, even though Strickland did get the quote-unquote out, it would have been the smartest thing to put him on and try to get the next batter, because this lineup for the Astros is not deep right now with Kyle Tucker on the IL, and the bottom half of this lineup is not fantastic. And so it would have been a smart move to intentionally walk him, but that strike 3 call, which was called a ball, that was right down the middle. And again, it goes back to why don't we have some sort of challenge system that we begin to implement? Because it doesn't mean we have to have robo-umps. I get that they still probably want to have an umpire behind there, but a simple challenge system changes the narrative of that inning, and I think changes the narrative of a lot of games that really have had a lot of blown calls. I mean, you're seeing a lot more of that on social media. When some of the bigger names that don't really care about baseball, like a Colin Cowherd, is tweeting about home plate umpiring, you know that the narrative that's out there isn't incredibly positive. And this, by the way, is with Angel Hernandez sitting at home. He's not even umping anymore. So just a frustrating moment. And John, I get it. Strickland needs to be better in those moments. He needs to get those outs. But I wonder about the momentum for a pitcher in those innings where you think that you've thrown the best pitch.
Yeah.
And then it's called a ball against a good hitter like Bregman, who does tear up the Angels. And then you end up walking him, and you got to face Jordan Alvarez now with the bases loaded.
Yeah, it just, like I said, it changes the whole projection of the inning. It unraveled after that, Mike, because Jordan Alvarez cleared the bases with a double. And so that was 3 runs. He gave the Astros a 4-1 lead. Now, Washington and Strickland both had thoughts on that pitch. They agreed that it was a strike, but they downplayed the effect on the loss. Wash said, I thought it was down the middle, but what can you do about that? It might have made a difference in getting him out there. We probably could have pitched around Alvarez, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Strickland said, I thought it was there, but we're all human. If it's a mistake, it's a mistake. Obviously, the pitch after that, there were mistakes on my end, so I've got to do better. So he wore that one.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. And like you said, yes, of course, Hunter Strickland needs to execute better in that situation. But good grief, it's so frustrating when you're in this tight 1-1 game and you're getting through the heart of the Astros lineup. And like you mentioned, Kyle Tucker's out. And so you have the opportunity to get past those top 4 and maybe survive that inning. Maybe it's not even a 4-1 inning. Maybe it's a 2-1 inning. And the whole, like I said, the whole rest of the game changed at that point. Because bad call that should have been strike 3.
John, I know we were watching the Angels, obviously, more than we're watching any other team. But it feels to me like this Angel team just struggles with any sort of adversity, especially in moments like that, where you got that pitch call and it didn't go your way, right? Like you got that strike, but they called it a ball. But then it seems like after that, they can't hold it together. Like they're almost like, well, I'm just going to throw this and see what happens, right? And so I don't know if that's part of the learning. I don't know if that's part of the immaturity in growing as a mature pitcher. And I'm sure it happens with other teams. We're just watching this team every day and we're focused on this team, of course. But it's really frustrating as a fan to look at that and go, I get that it's frustrating for you to miss that call, but you got to continue to throw some really good pitches. And it didn't feel like they threw very many good pitches, at least Strickland to Alvarez. It didn't feel like he really was able to rise to the occasion. It seems to happen often. What is that with the Angels? Are we going to put that in the learning category, John? Because it wasn't just this season. It's been multiple seasons where these guys just haven't been able to step up and help their team out in a moment that they didn't cause, and then the umpiring is against them, but then they just fold under the pressure.
Yeah, well, and it continued with the pitching, Mike. I mean, it was Hunter Strickland in that situation, and then the runs were poured on even more, a 7-1 loss. And Hunter Strickland's track record this season has been good, and that's all you can go on when you have a relief pitcher. You got to look at their track record. Here's where I take issue with that situation. Now, Griffin Canning did speak to the media when asked about his start after the bullpen blew it. He said, I felt pretty good just trying to go out there one pitch at a time and execute pitches. Now, my question here, Mike, is why did we get away from Griffin Canning, who was not through the 7th inning and had 80 pitches? 80 pitches. I know he gave up back-to-back singles. I understand that might be a moment where you're like, maybe we should pull, but like, this is why you don't see complete games anymore. 80 pitches? What are you doing? Like the guy could have had, Griffin Canning has probably thrown the most pitches out of any Angels starter over the last few years, other than the years that he's been hurt, because I've seen him get up into the 100s before. And so that was silly to me. I understand. Back-to-back singles. Maybe he's getting tired. Then go out and have a conversation with him. See if it's his inning or not. We've seen that plenty of times before. But 80 pitches, Mike, is just, you pull them at that point. This is why, like Jared Weaver, we talked about it the other day. Jared Weaver says, these pitchers are too soft. Well, in my opinion, maybe it's not Griffin Canning who's soft. Maybe it's the management. And it's not just the Angels. It's managers all over the league pulling their starters in these kinds of situations. Look, I understand it was back-to-back singles, but what's the worst that's going to happen there is that he gives up another hit or and something else like to Bregman, or Yordan Alvarez comes up. Like, what happened was also worst case scenario with Hunter Strickland. And so that was mind boggling to me that he was out at 80 pitches, especially when he kept it 1-1. I understand maybe it's a Monday morning quarterback sort of situation where it's like, well, if you stuck with Griffin Canning, it could have been much better. Yeah, of course. I totally admit to that. But I just take issue with the fact that it was 80 pitches.
Yeah.
And he gets yanked. I don't like that at all.
Do you think that you're of this opinion and frustrated with the narrative if Hunter Strickland gets out of the inning and gets a 1-2-3 and it ends up still being tied?
No, I'm still bringing up the fact that it was 80 pitches on Locked On Angels on Monday.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I understand if it was 80 pitches through 4 innings, then yes.
Sure.
Then you yank him. But
sure.
80 pitches and he's in the 7th inning. Come on, man. Let him go.
Yeah. And if it's a learning season, which Wash has said that it is, I think in those moments you go out there and you pump him up and you fire him up and you're like, bro, you're at 80 pitches. I need you to get through this inning and I need you to get these guys out right now. If you're going to be a Major League Baseball player and you're going to be the guy that's going to carry this team. I mean, Griffin Canning's been somebody that eats innings. Like, now's the time to do that. Now's the time to pull a Phil Nevin with Jose Suarez and say, get this out for me, right? This is that moment. And I think for Griffin Canning, it didn't look like he was tired. It didn't look like he was worn out. We don't know what the conversation was, but if it was just pitch to pitch, like, let that be the philosophy that you have as you move on to the next couple of batters who I get are really good batters, but you were so far so good against them up until this point.
Yeah, it comes down to that. It's the 3rd time through the order. We probably need to make a change here, and that's the stuff I can't stand.
Yeah.
You have no feel for the game, and people say, "Well, you can't measure feel, you can't measure momentum." Well, we saw it. There was a very tangible example of that when Hunter Strickland didn't get that strike 3 call. All the wind blew out of the sails, all the air went out of the tires, and all the momentum went away from the Angels in that moment. So don't tell me that momentum doesn't exist, because that's exactly what happened in this situation. So it just, it's frustrating. I understand those things they're intangible, but they're very, very real. And I think it's a read the room moment for management at that point, Mike. I want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels are playing the Diamondbacks on Tuesday on the road, 6:40 Pacific time. Mike, Jose Suarez is starting this one. Yeah. That's interesting because we were told that they wouldn't need a fill-in starter until June 15th, and today is June 10th. And so we're kind of in this question mode of, why is Jose Suarez starting? Well, Washington said on the decision to start Suarez, he said he was a starter before he moved into the bullpen. He stretched out enough to go out there and do it, and I think he wants to do it. Starting pitching... Sorry. Starting pitching is in his heart. We had to try to get him used to being a bullpen guy. He's been enjoying the work, but he's been preparing for that start. I'm looking forward to going out there and him giving us a good game.
You can't even get through the read without giggling.
Starting pitching is in his heart. Well, you know what? Like, I love baseball. Baseball's in my heart. I'm not in the game. Yeah. I guess we're going to rely on the power of friendship and the heart of the champion, right, Mike?
Yeah.
All right. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM and the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, Ohapi walked it off on Sunday, and Bo Porter was probably the one who saved that game and earned the Angels the win. We'll talk about what we mean in just a minute.
Everydayers, you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. That's supplyhouse.com. At supplyhouse.com, it's the most reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. You can shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands. And when you do, you'll get your order delivered right to your front door with fast shipping from coast to coast. And if you need help with the order, they have expert support, industry-leading service from some of the friendliest people in the business. And you get to talk to a real person every single time. And then pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. You can join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM. You can order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And everydayers, you can get involved in the NBA Finals with FanDuel, because summertime, of course, it means baseball, but the NBA Finals are happening and they're wild right now. And you can place bets with FanDuel. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 extra bucks for you. And you can bet it on anything that you want, including the Finals MVP or who's going to hit a home run in baseball. Check out FanDuel.com/lockedon and win big this summer with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, if you haven't done so already, make the switch from ESPN and all those other cable shows to Locked On Sports Today, because they are bringing you 24/7, a sports streaming channel program just for you, to bring you the biggest stories across the sports world. They bring you can't miss analysis, opinions, news. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Speaking of your team every day, the Angels are back at it on Tuesday night. They're going to be in Arizona against the Diamondbacks. 6:40 Pacific time is the start time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Johnny, Saturday's game, the Angels lost 6-1. Before the game, Michael Stefanik was called up.
Finally.
Kyron Paris was sent down to AAA. And by the way, hit a home run yesterday
Attaboy.
In AAA. So getting used to that. And then Wash talked about Stefanik being on this team. He, by the way, had a great check swing, move the runner over, score a run, RBI on the Sunday, which is, we're talking about nickel and diming. Like
contact, baby.
His bat is perfect for this lineup. Wash said on Stefanik that he's progressing with his game. He's still not running up to par because he had a left quad strain, but he said he's moving well on defense, and there's been some raving reviews about his bat. We need a contact guy like Stefanik in this lineup. And speaking of the lineup, Johnny, Zach Neto on Saturday, batting 5th for the first time in his career. And he's somebody that we think that will help carry this team. He's had some clutch hits against San Diego. So the Angels are battling back in this game. And the main narrative of this game has been something the Angels have struggled with all season long. Runners in scoring position, big opportunities. Oh, by the way, there's 2 outs, right? They get some runners on,
always.
and then there's a strikeout and then another strikeout. So Neto is up late in this game with the bases loaded, and he does something that drives us nuts. Now, we love Zach Neto on this show.
Yes.
He is. We're a huge fan. He's a favorite of Mike. He's a favorite of John. Yes, I just spoke in the third person, but we love Zach Neto. So we're prefacing all of that with we love Zach Neto. But John, he did something late in this game when he came up with the bases loaded that is just so frustrating. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, so Abreu had just walked the previous 2 batters, and then right before that, the reliever who was in before Abreu also walked a batter. So the bases were loaded because of walks, Mike. And even Rengifo was able to steal second, and then there was a walk anyway. So that filled the bases. And this is another read the room moment. It's another reason why we thought that the iPad screen time conversation was actually a good thing, because it's helping keep these players' heads in the game. Now, after 3 consecutive walks by 2 different pitchers, Neto swung at the first 2 pitches.
Yeah.
And he grounded out on that second pitch. Oh, man, it's frustrating because you just watched a guy not have very good control of the zone.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, what is it about seeing that go down? And maybe it's just because we're not in the moment. We're watching as fans. We're watching from the stands. We're watching on TV. We're listening on the radio. Maybe we don't feel the moment like these players do. Obviously, we don't.
Yeah.
But I just, why not be patient there? I wonder why Neto was so anxious to swing in that situation. And again, it's not just Neto. We've seen this all season long with these guys swinging at pitches right after a pitcher has been wild and can't seem to find the zone. Like, do your team a favor and take the walk and walk in the run, in that situation. And so what goes through their mind? I'm trying to wrap my mind around that, and I just can't figure it out sometimes.
Yeah. So yesterday I talked to a former player and I talked to a coach who coaches baseball, and I was asking them like, okay, give me the thought process there. And what they said I thought was really helpful for somebody like me who's a nerd on the podcast. He said that a lot of baseball players get into that place where this guy's walked 3 or 4 guys, right? Bases loaded. And their mindset is this: well, the pitcher's due to throw a strike. Because he's going to try to groove one down the middle because he doesn't want to miss again. And so that's the mindset. And he said a hitter's coach's job is to say, don't jump on that first pitch strike. Don't jump on that first pitch, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Let the bat sit on your shoulder. But both of them, the former player and the coach, both of them said, it is so hard to do.
I imagine
in a moment when you want to come through because you're amped up, you're ready to go, especially if for young guys. But they said it's not even just young guys, like veterans will have those moments where they'll go, I want to come through. But the mindset, Johnny, and I thought this was really helpful. The mindset is this pitcher's due and he's going to groove one. And I don't want to be standing there with the bat on my shoulder with a pitch right down the middle. I want to make sure that I make good contact and move these runners over with 2 outs. I want to make sure I make good contact and hit the ball on the ground so that we can try to score. But that just didn't happen and hasn't happened with the Angels this season.
That makes sense if they don't want to be the one staring, staring at the first strike down the middle, because then us dorks with a podcast will go, what are you doing staring right at the, you could have crushed that, So I get it. It's a danged if you do, danged if you don't.
Yep.
And so to hear that really makes it interesting. But to be honest with you, Mike, I would rather watch a lot of these guys take strike one with the bat on their shoulders.
Yeah, if I'm Johnny Washington in that moment, I'm whispering in their ear or sending a sign out like, hey, I want that bat to just rest. I want you to take a deep breath, right?
Yeah.
Because that pitcher's really struggling, and they're probably going to have to groove one down the middle. But if they're going to have to groove one down the middle for the first pitch, they'll probably do it on the second pitch as well. Or if they're really wild, they're probably throwing it outside of the zone. You got to trust your eye in that moment, and you need to drown out the noise and not let the emotions get to you. I know that that's easy for us to say, but that's I think the philosophy and the approach that needs to be pounded into these young hitters. Like, you don't need to save the day on the first pitch.
Yeah.
You can save the day, but let this guy sweat it out. Stop helping him out.
Right.
And let him sweat it out. And maybe perhaps you'll make really good contact on the third or the fourth pitch of the at-bat.
It's them that are in trouble, not the hitter. It's the pitcher on the mound who's in trouble and has to get himself out of that situation. Now, funny you mentioned Johnny Washington, because we've heard a lot of good stuff about Barry Enright, and Barry Enright has been very vocal about the way he's worked with players, but Johnny Washington's a bit of a mystery. And even when he was interviewed before the season, he didn't really seem to have a clear-cut answer for how he was going to handle things.
A lot of ambiguity.
A lot of ambiguity. That's a good way to put it, because I bring that up because it wasn't just Neto. The entire offense went 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Now, Neto had the bases loaded, and that's why that moment stood out to us.
Yeah.
But the fact is the entire offense failed that night. And they're really missing guys like Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon and Brandon Drury, who are all relatively close to coming back. Seems like Drury might be first, and then even Rendon, who's been out there taking fielding drills and whatnot. And then we heard from Trout that he's on the bicycle, so working on that knee. But Mike, when it comes down to the pitching in this one, Tyler Anderson, he surrendered 4 runs over the innings that he pitched, and just didn't feel like the Angels' night, because you kind of feel like Tyler Anderson's going to go out there and do his thing. Mike, the big question here, and I love the way that you phrase this, is this the learning experience that we should expect, the Halos learning experience 2024? Or when does the learned become the performance? When do we go from I'm learning, they learned it, now they're doing it?
Yeah. I mean, I think we saw a bit of a glimpse of that against San Diego, where they were able to come through. I think what I'd like to see is more complete games, meaning that those games where the offense and the pitching are really just functioning well. That's when I think that they're starting to turn what they've learned into performance, because they're pitching well, but then their offense isn't relying on their pitcher. Their pitchers don't have to be perfect. Their offense is scoring some runs as well. Like when they're averaging about 4.5 runs a game, that's when I think that they're starting to really take what they've learned and they're applying it. They're putting it into a performance now. And so that's the thing I'm going to be looking for, is when the offense starts to really compile some runs instead of waiting until the very end of the game and then hitting, 5 home runs in an inning, right? Like, I want to see that over the course of the game. You and I call it nickel and diming. Yeah. That's when I think learned becomes performed.
Yeah, because you are down 3-0 to start a game, and you pick up a run here and a run there and a run there, and suddenly you're back in it.
Yep.
And yeah, you didn't get them all at once with a big, huge home run. You made the smart decisions. You took a walk. You let somebody drive you in. You stole a base. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about that we'd like to see more of.
Everydayers, and those of you in sales or working in sales, LinkedIn has something for you. It's called the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And the Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers. And it's a great way to use AI and the great smart technology that is being created in our world today. Doing this will help you bring in higher revenue and increase your sales performance. LinkedIn Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, be aware of key signals like job changes or which accounts you should prioritize. It also shows you hidden allies that you can find the right buyers who are most likely to convert to the product that you're trying to sell. It's fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform. Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the right people that matter. And right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon. 60-day free trial. Get the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Allow it to help you sell like the superstar that you are. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started.
Mike, deep in his heart of hearts, Trey Cabbage is still a Halo.
Thank you, Trey.
He got traded to the Astros, and the Angels got a reliever in return for him. Was it over the offseason? I think it was over the offseason. Yeah. But it was a back-and-forth game on Sunday. The Angels ended up winning at 9-7. But I'll tell you what I'm talking about here. The Angels offense picked up the pitching in this one. And then with Kevin Pillar on first, Logan Hoppe came up against Josh Hader, who was pitching in his second inning, by the way. Remember that he was famously quoted as, "I'm not pitching 2 innings because you don't value me enough for me to pitch 2 innings. So once you pay me, then I'll pitch 2 innings." Well, good thing for us that he pitched 2 innings, because Logan Hoppe came through clutch and hit a home run, a walk-off 2-run home run to left field. Here's the funny thing. Trey Cabbage was in left field playing for the Astros. He caught the ball leaping up into the air, but when he came down, his arm or the glove actually hit the wall. So he had the ball in his glove.
Yeah.
Now, just imagine, I did see the highlight later, but I'm in the car listening to the game on the radio. So imagine what I'm trying to picture here. I'm like, what happened? Did they win? What? And Terry Smith and Mark Langston are like, hold on. We're going to wait and see. And so as he came down, he dropped the ball, and the ball stayed over the wall. And then here's where it got wild, was because they thought it was a catch. I mean, Pillar was running. He thought it was an out. Mm-hmm. And so he comes trailing back to first base, and he and Logan almost passed each other, which would have been a technical out, Mike. It would have been the most Angel way to lose a situation where you just had a walk-off home run. But explain to us why the Angels didn't embarrass themselves on Sunday in that moment.
Yeah, you got to check out the video, because I'm not going to do it justice, but Kevin Pillar is running back. He's got his head down, and Logan Hoppe had just rounded first base, and he's watching what's happening in left field. And Pillar looks up, realizes Hoppe's right there. Hoppe starts to go back to first base. If Pillar touches first base, Hoppe's out.
Right.
Because they've gone past each other.
Yeah, they can't.
Bo Porter can't touch him. He can't maneuver them and say, no, don't go there. Bo Porter is yelling and screaming and making hand motions to Pillar to stop.
Yeah.
And so then Logan Hoppe goes, "It's a home run." And Pillar's like, "What's happening right now?" If Bo Porter doesn't do that, this game is a mess at the end. And I don't know if obviously Ohapi would be out. What happens to the home run? Does it come off the board? Like, they would have to discuss all of that.
None of that matters because I wouldn't have survived that. I don't think we would have had a show today. I think I would have had to take like 8 sick days.
Yeah. But it's so important to acknowledge Bo Porter, because I think back to when Taylor Ward, they were playing in Houston, obviously against the Astros again. And was it last year, John, or was it the year before, where Taylor Ward rounds first base and Altuve has the ball, and Ward thinks he's like joking with him and he's going to throw it to first base. He ends up back picking Taylor Ward off of first base.
Yeah.
And the first base coach for the Angels is standing there doing nothing. Doesn't
like
say a word.
Yeah.
Doesn't help him. Doesn't do anything. And so it was kind of like, why are you there? So watching Bo Porter freak out and go, stop, Kevin, don't come. No, Logan. And he can't touch.
Kevin.
He can't do anything. And he's trying not to cross the line. He's trying not to enter the field of play.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bo Porter,
Seriously,
for being a smart coach for a team that needs smart coaching, because that could have been the most Angels ending to a game.
Right.
But luckily, it was a home run. The fan who got it, picked it up. It was funny to hear the fans see the catch. They reacted with, oh, and then the fan picks it up and there was like a, oh, wait. And even Wayne Randazzo was like, he caught the ball.
Yeah.
Wait, no, he didn't. And so it was a wild ending, but it was a great save to the weekend for the Angels. They were able to at least salvage that last game. Again, 4-2 on this homestand. So that is a step forward. That's an improvement from learning to actually performing. So really, really grateful that they were able to get that walk off, and good on Logan Ohapi hitting Josh Hader and trying to get it over that short wall in left field.
Yeah. And the offense came alive, Mike. It was a 9-7 victory after getting, a loss 7-1, 6-1. It was like, okay, there's the offense. And a lot of that was Logan Ohapi. A lot of that was Zach Neto. A lot of that was Nolan Shonwell, who had 2 sack flies in this one. And he was down in the 7th spot, and Michael Stefanik led off in this one. And he actually, you mentioned it earlier in the show, he had that check swing squib that ended up scoring, I believe it was Moniak from third, in order to tie the game. And so there wasn't out on the play, but it was enough of it was basically a bunt, because it got the runner from third home to tie it up 7-7. And then Carlos Estevez came in, and I don't know what's gotten into him lately, but he had 2 saves against the Padres, and then he was able to keep this one tied at 7 when he came in as well. So this was more of that game of, hey, we're picking each other up. We're all playing good, smart baseball here, and we're not trying to be the hero. And even Logan Ohapi, even though he ended up being the hero, they said that he got on with an error before that home run, and it was like, but he hit the ball like 100 and something miles an hour at the third base. Like, how's that an error?
Right. Right.
So I was just like, come on. I'm mostly mad because he's on my fantasy team. Actually ended up starting him yesterday, so I lucked out.
Nice.
Maybe I need to start him more often, and he'll start doing things like this. But Mike, this is the exact kind of game that, was a roller coaster. And of course the Angels they had to come back twice in this game. And then they were able to do it a third time with the walk-off home run. But the way it ended really had us all holding our breath. But it was just really great to see those young guys, and especially Logan Ohapi, carry this offense for once, and really see them step up and protect their pitchers in this one. And so it was like a collective team win. I know it's not a series win, but I like the way you framed it. 4-2 on the homestand. How about that? Let's go with 4-2 on the homestand. I think that's a better way to talk about it.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels have a day off on Monday. They're playing on Tuesday in Arizona against the Diamondbacks, 6:40 Pacific time, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, I am so excited for tomorrow's show, and once you explain why, everyone's going to understand, right?
Yep. So we're John and I are pro wrestling nerds who also are Angel lovers. We love the Angels. Now, if you're an Angel nerd who maybe perhaps loves pro wrestling, you're not going to want to miss tomorrow's show. We have a special surprise guest. He'll be with us on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation. We hope you come back and join us again. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Is it The Rock?
Is it Dusty Rhodes? Wait.